Kevin, thank you for taking the time to come. I'm super excited for this conversation. You've had a super interesting career. You're the co founder of ChangeNOW, the world's largest gathering of innovations for the planet, with the mission to accelerate solutions to the biggest challenges of the century. And we'll get to that a little bit later to ChangeNOW. But first, I want to talk about where did your interest in social impact come from?
Yeah, I mean it's a kind of process. So I wouldn't say this was an interest when I got out of school, for instance. But what I would say is, excuse me, I was kind of it, I would say the first 10 years of my life, I just spent my career trying to find the right balance, and I was whatever the experience I had, there was always that feeling inside that this was not right for me. So I did a lot of taste and fail. That's what I did for the first few years of my life. So I started working in consulting, and then when I was in India, in Mumbai, and I I felt that I was doing a job that was super interesting, but I could be doing the same one in Paris, and I had decided to leave Paris because I wanted to see something else, and I wanted to have a. I felt I always had that urge to have an impact on society, but I didn't know exactly where it came from. I had no clue. So I came to India, and I started working there, and I felt that my connection to concrete action was a bit far, and that's when I decided to start working in my first social venture, which was um, an art, well, it's in an art gallery. But I mean, I come into that later. But basically, I had different experiences um, that always kind of got me unsettled because in some parts I felt really driven by what I was doing, but I had a hard time. I would say, paying the bills at the end of the month. And then in other parts of my career, I did earn my life very well, but I felt that my life, the job I was doing was quite a bit dry, and I felt that it was a bit hard for me to wake up in the morning and find a motivation to go to office because I felt that was not really what I wanted to, the purpose I had in life. And so there was always that feeling of well, am I someone who is there to make money? Am I someone who is there to find purpose? And the big question I had is why can't I have both of them? Why
Mm-hmm.
can't the two of them be clubbed together? And why is it that we have to make a choice? So that's when I kind of started getting interested in this concept of finding businesses with a mission. I got interested in movements like the B Corp movement, and that's when things started to unfold, and I started to understand, what was a kind of right alley for me. Uh, but it was a process. As I said, it took me a lot of time, and I did get. I would say, if I was just to summarize it, I would say that there was always that feeling inside that what I was doing needed to have purpose, but not to the extent that I would have to sacrifice everything that that I would have to carry the weight of all those things that are not well in this world on my shoulders, because that's just that gets you depressed. And I went through these phases of depression when you're a social entrepreneur, you have to handle, well, all the pressure of being an entrepreneur, but on top, so a lot of uncertainty, having to pay the people that work for you, having to pay yourself, making the business work, and at the same time, you need to make sure that what you're doing is actually having a positive impact. So you also have impact KPIs to take account of. So that's a lot of things to take account of, and that at some point, sometimes it just feels like it's too much for you to handle, and so that's why I think that journey was really interesting because I went from one job to the other, and those experiences were very, very different. They were actually at the extremes opposites. And that's how I got to understand what was my forte.
I love so much of what you said. I mean, I think that something that's great is that you listen to your restlessness, right? And I think restlessness can be a gift because it's what inspires us to create something different, do something different, figure out a new solution. Um, and through that, you've created a number of interesting things by following that restlessness or listening to it. Uh, I also like that as you were looking at ways to find balance, really considering how you can both feel meaning in the work you're doing and have an impact, but also and be able to sustain a lifestyle
Yeah,
that you
take
enjoy,
care of
that it
yourself and
doesn't need to be a
your loved ones,
compromise.
right? Yeah,
And I think that's key and that's huge. I think it's a mindset shift that a lot of us from just culture absorb the notion that if we are going to go into a profession that does good, you have to sacrifice a paycheck for it. And I think that that is a misconception because ultimately, the greatest challenges we have in the world are also the greatest business opportunities if you can figure out a way to address them. Um, so I loved that. Thank you for sharing it. And one thing you talked on a little bit was one of your first ventures. So you left consulting in 2010, Capgemini, and you started something called Art Loft in Mumbai with your sister. Can you talk
yeah,
a little bit about what prompted that pivot, what Art Loft is?
yeah. So it's funny. I mean, it's um, I it was a venture that I started with my sister. I mean, at the beginning, I kind of like the idea was to help her launch her thing because she's a very gifted person, and but at that time she just lacked a little bit of self confidence, and I think that I gave her a little bit of a nudge and support as well to start her own thing, and then doing that, investing in this venture of basically using arts as a way to help people, in get help them better understand who they are and self-express them, because in India, I mean, at the time, cultural education was, I mean, still there. It's still something that is I would say, not a priority in the way education is made. I mean, they are super strong in physics and in math, in sciences in general, and but I would say in terms of uh, cultural education, there is it's not considered as something central and at the same time there was a you could feel a lack of platforms for people, adults, to express themselves on kind of blockages, unsaid. I would say basically um, patterns where family constraints, family tensions, situation where when you were in the Western world, you would just basically turn to a coach or someone that could help you, express and share, and give you a platform where you can actually try to develop, and better understand where you are at, and make positive changes in your life. And there was a feeling that there was a lack of such platforms in Mumbai, and we felt that art was also a good way to do that. So we launched this platform, which was a kind of place where you would bring cultural education to, at the same time, to um, uh, in areas that lack that kind of I would say programs. So in very poor areas. Like we worked in slums, for example. We worked in orphanages. We worked with in schools with very little, and we gave moments to kids and young adults that I think they kept. they kept in them for for quite a long time, and we provided experiences that were very meaningful using arts like painting, music, dancing, and other art forms. And then we also were working with adults into self-development programs through those kind of tools, because painting, music are actually, it's not very well known, but it's those are expression forms that are universal. You may not speak a language, but everyone actually knows how to paint. Everyone actually knows how to sing naturally. Or you don't need to speak the same language to be able to express yourself in the painting. So we were using those kind of tools, and we worked, and I very quickly got kind of very much into it, but not just specifically what we do, the mission we were doing, but mainly the idea of having an impact on people's life was it was the first time I felt that what I was doing was meaningful. We did a lot of workshop with hundreds of women, and who had history, stories of being beaten or being not very welcome in their in-laws families, or a lot of blockages that they would have no platform to share on, and then they would come do workshop with us, and then everything would just open up, and then they would share, and then it would be experiences where when they leave the room, they tell us that we've changed their lives, and that was the first time I kind of felt proud of what I was doing, so I joined my sister because I felt she kind of needed some help in the business development part. So I did that, and then we teamed up, and we ran this together for a few years, until a moment when I came to the conclusions that it was a great venture, but it was very hard to fund. I felt like I was, you know, there's this saying of, running after meals, windmills, where you just spend your time, losing a lot of energy trying to get a little bit of funding, and at that time in the market, it was very difficult to get access to that. So came to the conclusion that it was going to be difficult for me to make a living out of it. And it was not a scalable business because the main asset that I was selling was my sister's knowledge in that discipline, art therapy. That's how it's called, art therapy. And so that's when I decided to leave, go back to Europe, and my idea was, well, now that I have that experience, why don't I start working in businesses that are a bit more scalable? And that's when I got interested into the tech ecosystem. We were early 2010s. We had quite a few scale-ups in Europe that were copycats of successful ventures in the US, like Groupon and quite a few others. Um, and uh, and that's when I started getting excited about this idea of having a product that you can scale infinitely globally very quickly. And I got in that ecosystem. I started working in I started helping some startups raise funding. I did that in France, in Italy, and then at some point I joined a scale up which was what's called City Deal, that got acquired by Groupon, that became Groupon after that, and I worked there for quite a few, I mean, a little bit of time, and then very quickly to realize that this was really not for me. Um, because this was actually at the very other end of what I had been doing a few months before, working in orphanages, slums in India and Mumbai, and then a minute later, we're in these companies where I felt that I would say the experience was quite dry in terms of I would say mindset and that perception that everything is short term, because it's a listed company, so there's a lot of pressure from investors to achieve results, and at the expense of the rest of the ecosystem, your partners, your it's just about keeping the pressure on your resources, keeping the pressure on your partners, clients, and so on, and always squeezing people more and more, and until they just dry out and then they leave. And that I just felt that was, I mean, it was a really great experience because the people that I met there were brilliant, and really, I mean, some of them had skills that I found out I also wanted to have. That's when I decided to go to INSEAD, because quite a lot of those folks were coming from INSEAD, so I got inspired by them. But I would just say that my only thing was, it was just not for me, because in terms of it was just not my mindset. It was just not the way I was wired, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, at that time, very successful companies, very exciting, a lot of attraction, a lot of press around those companies, and at that time, I think neither people would understand why I was really complaining, and neither did I, because I felt that, what, I had everything to be happy about, but I just felt empty.
Mm.
Um, and it took me quite a few years to understand why I felt that way, and now I do understand why I felt that way. Yeah, so two experiences, very, very, very different. Um, and yeah, and I, after a few months after that, that's when I went to INSEAD. I did my MBA there. And I spent a whole year trying to understand what, you know that question that I was asking myself: why do I have to choose between purpose and money? And I mean, not just money, but just, as you said, finding a way to sustain my life, and the people I love. And so I spent a whole year thinking about that, and how could we make the two converge. And what was really interesting is the first few months. I took the leadership role at the social impact lab of INSEAD, and at the time when I took over the leadership, the figures I got from the previous leadership team was that less than 2% of the students at INSEAD had ever been involved in a social impact venture. And I would say more than 80% didn't know what social impact was. And that was
So
in
often,
2014. Sorry?
actually, can you describe for the listeners that don't know what a social impact venture is? What is it?
Yeah, well, there's many definitions to that, but I would say one I would what I would retain is it's a company that doesn't that's core mission is not only, I mean, it's not just to find profitability, it's not to maximize profits. If you look at um, I would say the way capitalism is built, and mainly based on the Milton Friedman, and quite a few other very brilliant economists of the late 70s and 80s in the Western world. I would say their idea was that the purpose of a company is to maximize profit and to maximize shareholder value. And what a social venture would tell you is well, actually, the purpose of that social impact company is actually to solve an issue, a global issue. It is to solve an issue for society of, that basically basically to address one of the very important goals of that humanity and the environment are facing. And so maybe tied to poverty, or education, health, climate change. I mean, you name it. But basically, trying to find a solution to a very concrete issue that society is facing.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of this company is to solve that problem. And the money aspect of it, the profitability aspect of it, is a way to achieve that.
Mm-hmm. I
So
think
it's a
that's a
means to
really,
an end.
yeah, that's a really important point. And I feel like it was also highlighted as you were talking about your journey with Art Loft and then working in the IT industry. One of the parts that really resonated with me when you were talking about Art Loft was, which is kind of a side tangent, was the importance of expression in healing. And I think it's so beautiful that that's what you were doing through art therapy, essentially. Um, And for the listeners, I think there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score that has a lot of examples of blockages which we store
Yeah,
in ourselves. And in order to get them
yeah,
out, you actually need to express and validate and see those emotions, and kind of set them free. And your ventures seem to have been doing that, which is amazing. But then you also made the comment of it was hard to sustain it. So getting funding. And when you switched over to the tech industry, you were interested in scalable solutions. And one of the reasons why business has such an opportunity to make systemic change is because businesses are profitable. And so that makes it scalable. Because
exactly.
if you create a solution that's a win win, that's doing something good for consumers, for society, for the community, and is also a profitable revenue stream, then you can keep doing it indefinitely and improving it. Um, so I just wanted
Yeah.
to highlight that as well, that through those experiences, I feel like you kind of lived both sides of that. And then we're trying to figure out how to combine the two.
Yeah, it's funny you're talking about size because again, when I was inside, I got a slide. It's funny. I will send it to you after, where you have a spectrum, a range of companies and entities, and basically, if you, on the far left you have NGOs, on the far right you've got classic, I mean, I would say traditional companies, and in the middle you have what they called at the time, social impact ventures. And what was funny is that at the time, and then on the chart they were giving examples of those ventures, whether NGOs or traditional companies, and in the middle social impact ventures. So what was funny is that so you had NGOs like WWF, for example, on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, on in the middle, you had the one example that everybody knew at the time, which was Patagonia,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the only example that they had in terms of what's a social venture. And then on the right, you had so traditional companies, and they were the examples we had were tobacco companies. So you had a tobacco company, and then you have Coca-Cola, and I forgot which one, but and I think an oil company. And I was like, okay, so what those guys are saying is that the norm today is just those kinds of companies, and they don't have any other example that Patagonia as a social venture. And then what it's saying is as well is all. So basically, what the chart was saying is that those two worlds, which are the NGO world and the business world, they don't talk to each other. They have preconceived ideas about each other. The NGOs would just basically feel that the business people are just bad guys who are ruling the world, and the business guys would just think that the NGO people are just I would say dreamers or tree huggers that are not serious, and they should start. I mean, they should try to do something serious about their lives, because saving the world is one thing, living is making a living is another one. So that's when I realized that we need to find a way to reconcile those two worlds. We need to find a path that creates a conversation between those two. And my feeling was at the time, well, Patagonia is such a great story, and when you hear the CEO today is Ryan Gellert, and I've met him a couple of times, and people working there is they're what they say is that they're in business to save the planet. That's what they say. They are really hardcore on this, and they are visionaries, and that's great. But I think there's a very wide range actually of companies that we could also take into examples, and my feeling was there's a very large number actually of businesses and entrepreneurs that are actually trying to do something good in this planet with with a business model, as you said, that is sustainable, because making a business out of it is sustainable in itself, because you have a model that allows you to run your operations and hire and grow your impact. And the problem that NGOs at the time had was that they were mainly relying on external money, external funding, and they wouldn't find a sustainable business model because they were just relying on donations.
Mm-hmm.
So they were spending most of the time, when you hear someone like Captain Paul Watson, he left uh, he left I forgot the name of this organization, Greenpeace, that he founded. He left Greenpeace because he said in his book that Greenpeace just spending its time actually raising funding, but actually, I mean, it had been maybe like 15 or 20 years since they actually tried to, I mean, completely save the save the mammal on the in the Arctic Ocean. So, I mean, he's got a very drastic view of it, but his point, which is right, is that if you spend your time raising funds, then you're actually not doing something concrete for the world as well. So those guys, they also need to find a real business model. So the idea was, how do you make those two worlds converge, and how do you make a new standard? And my vision at the time was, we need to make a new standard of doing business. And I think it shouldn't be too much on the right, should be too much on the left. It should be in the middle. And the middle is, well, mission-driven companies
Mm-hmm.
are, yeah, I mean, you could say social impact, but I would say businesses with a purpose. And at the time, one range of companies that were doing that pretty well were the B Corps. Was a movement that was actually starting, Benefit Corporation, that was starting to get traction in the US. It's funny because it's the US movement that got actually inspired by the models in Europe, because in Europe, in France and Germany, the social models are very strong, and there's a lot of welfare and protection as well for the employees, and for, I would say, the ecosystem around a company. And the founders got inspired by those models, and they tried to reinstall it in the US. And that's when they started the Benefit Corporation, which idea was to create a company that would benefit society. And that's why they call it that way. And then it became what it is today, which is a very influential movement that actually went way beyond the US. Now it's a very widely known movement in Europe as well, and in Asia, and all around the planet. And it has now become a kind of new standard that businesses should try to reach. It's kind of a new elite kind of a company. And what they've done with the label is that they're kind of trying to show what's what should be the new standard. And what I really like about that is now companies are understanding that this kind of model, where you need to have a concrete mission, I mean, making profit is not enough anymore. You need to have a mission as a company, because if not, then you're not going to be able to sustain your company in the long run, because
Mm-hmm.
investors are going to leave you, customers are going to leave you, and your employees are not going to be willing to join you as well, because when you look at the younger generations, well, they want purpose as well in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
So if a company wants to attract people and wants to be alive in 100 years, and that's a conversation I had many times with some people at Coca-Cola, for example, which is a very big question for them. How do they stay alive for the next 100 years? Well, you need to find a new business. You need to find a new mission for your company.
Mm-hmm.
And so doing a business, making money is not enough anymore. And at the same time, trying to save the world is not enough anymore if you're not able to make money. So you need to find a way to do the two together. And yeah, so
So many
and
good
at
things
that
there.
time, 2015, the idea was this should be the way forward. And I feel that today with Change Now, that's what we are trying to do.
Um, yeah, I think you're spot on with what you said. Like research shows that consumers will switch brands for a company that has values that align with their own. Like they want your company to stand for something, and they'll reward companies that do with their dollars. And then employees, they're picking companies, their dream jobs, based on ones whose values align with their own. And as a company, when you're trying to figure out how to engage your workforce so they bring their best innovation, their passion, their work ethic to you, the easiest way to tap into that is to inspire your organization to create the world, to make the world a better place every single day through their work. And so when you're able to figure out a mission for your company that makes sense for what industry you're in, that's the way to attract like the best talent. It really is a win-win for your business. Uh, and I also wanted to pause. So a few things we talked about were B Corp and Benefit Corporation, just for the listeners that aren't familiar with that. So Benefit Corporation within the US, and there's different versions within other countries, is a legal entity that a company will establish itself as instead of a regular corporation, where they are required to consider stakeholders outside of shareholders. So they legally have to consider the impact that they have on employees, on suppliers, on the environment. And then there's also something called B Corporation, which does a third party certification. So companies that sign up to be a B Corp, they'll actually have an emblem, a B Corp icon on their products or on their websites, which identify them as such. And every year, every 2 years, they do an analysis on their company to make sure that they are considering more stakeholders than shareholders. So it's great movements that we're seeing as far as a shift in the way companies are being run. Which brings
Yeah.
me, I think, to your most recent venture, which is ChangeNOW. What is it? Where did it come from? How did it begin? And what makes it different than other conferences?
Yeah. So um, I would say it started after the Paris Agreement in 2015. I I actually had met had befriended someone in my batch at INSEAD in 2015, 2014, 2015, Santiago Lefebvre, and I was running I had launched another venture with another friend of mine, and but at that time we had kept in touch, and one day, Santiago, that was in 2016, came to, so that was just a few months after the Paris Agreement. So just to take a little bit of distance and come back to that. So what was really interesting about the Paris Agreement, it was the first time that all countries from the developing and developed world agreed on a very ambitious track towards carbon neutrality by 2050 in most part of the world, and they agreed that it was an effort that needed to be made by everyone, and the ambition to target carbon neutrality by 2050 was quite you know was quite special, because no one, I mean, no one told them to go that far, and they still decided to do that, and to put this vision in place and say and tell the world, well, you know what, this is the vision, and now you guys need to figure out how to do that. But well, you know what, all the states agreed that this is the target and this is what we are going to aim for. And okay, great. So great signal. And at the same time, we felt that there was a beginning of, also, let's say, citizen movements as well, in terms, getting more and more awareness around climate issues in 2015, with some movies as well making some noise in France, in England, in Germany, in other geographies, and people starting to ask questions as well. I mean, people were obviously, some people were asking questions way beyond 2015, but I would say it was becoming a little bit more. And you could feel the weak signals, and and so Santiago came to me and he said, you know what, because you were the head of social impact at INSEAD, and he actually is the one who brought the TEDx license at INSEAD. So he was very much into events and performance and shows, and he came to me and said, you're very much into the social impact world, and I feel that there is a need for to create a platform for social impact ventures to actually become, to get more traction. Because at the time it was all about tech, but social impact ventures has still had that kind of image of, I wouldn't say tree huggers, but I would say not to business like people, and so difficulty to attract investors and media and so on. And that's when I started thinking about that. And at the beginning, I did I heard, but I didn't pay too much attention because I was in my own business and I was working in my different ventures. And then he came back to me again because Santiago is someone who never, you can't say no to him more than once. So and then at some point I thought, this is an interesting idea. Let's put more thought into this. And then I started working on this during the evenings and during the weekends, and then little by little we started working on this. So the concept would be to create a very big platform in which we would showcase all the innovation that exists in the world that are trying to address one of the UN goals. And we were also inspired by
Fascinating.
someone like Boyan Slat. That's it's funny because it's been 8 years that I keep saying that he's 17 years old, but I think now he's 25. He's a Dutch guy who, when he was 17, made that TED that was really popular, and with this idea of getting all the plastic out of the oceans with a giant bin, and that was called the Ocean Cleanup. He raised a lot of money, got so much traction, and that was a talk that really inspired us because we felt, well, you know what, we want ChangeNOW, this platform, to welcome all the boy and slats of the world, and we know that there's actually tons of them. The problem is that they are not connected to any kind of ecosystem where they are going to have some help from investors, from accelerators, incubators, media, and so on, because this ecosystem is not structured. They are just all alone in their own regions, and they are not talking to each other. So we felt we needed to structure this ecosystem and to help it grow. And we felt, well, look at tech, look at what's been going on for the past decades with major tech conferences like the CES Las Vegas or the Web Summit in Europe, and look at the way there's a kind of new myth around a new mythology around tech. This idea that you can create a global company out of your garage and make movies and those social networks that would go global there instantly. That new mythology that kind of when got kids, 20 years old kids, go from a place where the dream was Wall Street to a dream that a dream that was actually the Silicon Valley. And the question was for us, well, how do we change that mythology to going from Wall Street to Silicon Valley to changing the world?
Love that.
Um, and so we felt that what we needed to do was to create a new common narrative. How do you create a new common narrative around change? And for us, this idea was, well, actually, when you look at ecology, there's been ecologists since the mid 20th century. And the problem is that the topic, I mean, you look at environment, but you look also at social issues. The problem is that those topics were not sexy. They were not trendy enough. So they needed to be remarketed. And that's what we did. I felt that we started talking about those topics in a more modern way, in a more dynamic way, in a more positive manner as well, in a way that would just embark everyone in this story of, we're actually all actors of change. We're actually all heroes of change. That was our tagline was, welcome heroes of change. Um, and and last year during the third edition, the tagline was, it is time for ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Meaning that we're all actors of change, and you don't need to be by yourself and running a very difficult business or solution by yourself. You can be someone at home, you can be someone teaching at school, you can be an employee in a big office, you can be a dentist, anyone. You can make a difference at your own scale. And this idea was to create a platform that would inspire professionals and companies to change their behaviors, and also inspire the public to get into this a little bit more, and realize that there is actually, we're not doomed. There are solutions. There are concrete solutions. What they need is support, and what they need is access to resources that will help them scale. And that's what ChangeNOW is about. Is about connecting those solutions that we showcase in one emblematic venue with all the actors that have resources, made a big, capital, media visibility, influence, partnerships, communication, expertise, you name it. We bring all those guys around the solution, and we make those solutions scale with one big uh, summit that lasts 3 days. And during those 3 days, for the solution, it's an equivalent of a years of networking, 1 year of networking, just in 3 days. And then, so we started this in 2017. We made it a yearly event. We had 3 editions. The last one, we brought 30,000 people together in one very big venue, emblematic venue in Paris, which is the Grand Palais, which was home to the World Expos in the 19th century. So it was kind of, we play a lot with symbols because we want those topics to be central. So we went to a very central venue in Paris, home to Paris Agreement, and in this place venue that was on the Champs-Élysées, and that was hosting the state of the art of innovation in 19th century around the industrial revolution. So we played a lot with symbols, and that's what actually got people to come as well. And we got also lucky because there was a lot of media traction in 2019 um, with Greta Thunberg, with the heat waves as well in many parts of the world. The media starting talking about climate and other topics very much. And our summit last January 2020 was the right platform to welcome a lot of people. So that's what made, the timing was great as well. And yeah, we became in 3 years the largest, yeah, as you said, the largest gathering of solutions for the planet. And this year we're, with this platform that will be digital for the first year, we're targeting more than 100,000 people. So it's quite exciting.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh. I One thing I love that you said that I think is so important and sometimes overlooked is changing the narrative to be positive.
Yeah.
Um, and historically, so much when you think about the challenges that face humanity, whether it's climate change, whether it's the refugee challenge, um, is usually communicated very doom and gloom. And that, to actually go back to a word used when you were talking about your art loft project, that creates blocks in people when you focus on doom and gloom. Like it's so heavy that uh, it doesn't spark innovation. It sparks people to turn the other way. And so when you can change the narrative to be about what is possible and the upside of it, like what we can create, that sparks problem solving. It sparks innovation. It sparks passion to actually march forward in a direction of positive change. So I think that's a really important point to mention. And I also love how you talk about one of the objectives for Change Now is bringing people together across sectors and industries so that they can collaborate. And I think collaboration is so important to reach better solutions, to scale faster. How have you, I guess, seen this come to life through Change Now? Is there an example that you can share?
Very concrete examples would be when I was quite interesting last year is we influenced a new law in less than 3 weeks that was passed, a bill that was passed 3 weeks after Change Now, because of an encounter between the Minister of Environment in France and a startup from Slovenia based in London. And basically what it did was they created those filters that basically uh, that how they capture, well, yes, those filters capture the micro particles of plastic that you have in your clothes when you wash them, when you put them in the washing machine and you're using synthetic clothing. Well, they lose every time you wash them, they lose some particles of plastic, and that is that's about 15% of the particles of plastic that you find in the oceans. 15% of it comes from your clothing and the way you wash them.
And just
And
as a note,
so,
there's more
yeah,
microplastic in our ocean than stars in the galaxy. Like it's
yeah,
already a ridiculous amount. It's a big problem. And the more we wash things, the more microplastic ends up in the ocean. And so this innovation you're saying helps filter it
yeah.
out before it gets into our water stream.
Exactly, and so the ministry was looking for a solution like that, and they had been looking for a solution like this for quite a few years, and they were discussing with the industrials, and they were saying that there is no such thing. So no real. I mean, it was very. They had a hard time basically convincing the manufacturers to actually put something like this in place. And when they met this solution, it's called Planet Care. You should look them up online. They're really great. They met with them, and then they invited them to come at the ministry like a few days later. And then they invited the manufacturers as well again around the table. And about 2 weeks later, they told them that well, since this exists, there is no reason why they shouldn't be using those kind of filters. So a couple of weeks later, they passed a bill that was basically obliging manufacturers of washing machines to use filters like this by 2024 in France.
That's incredible.
So you see the kind of impact that a connection between a startup from Slovenia based in London meeting a ministry in France, that the impact that encounter could have on lives of citizens in this country, which is by 2024 that all the washing machines will be equipped with those filters. Well, that makes you feel like you're doing something right with this platform.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of stories like this of companies that could raise millions of funding by some meetings that they got at ChangeNOW. And I remember one exhibitor told me, because we curate we curate a short list of innovators that we showcase in this venue, and one of us one of them told us, I met more than 400 people in 3 days in the past 3 days on my booth, and I think 80% of the people I met are really valuable for my business. So,
Wow.
and that's the kind of testimonials that really got us feeling and thinking that we just need to keep doing what we're doing and keep scaling it. So and that's what we're doing.
Now, as you curate this list of speakers and innovators for the summit, what are you looking for? How do you pick them? And what is it that you're wanting your guests from the summit to leave with?
What do we want our guests to live with?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the way we structured is we have about 10 main themes at the summit every year, which are usually the same year after year, and with a few novelties depending on the what's hot at the moment. But it's mainly around ocean and biodiversity protection, education, health, um, social inclusion, circular economy, clean energy, sustainable cities and mobility, and a few other sustainable fashion, changing consumer habits, and a few other topics like this. And So for each of those topics, so there's two ways for us to select startups. Is a we actually partner with more than 200 organizations, network accelerators, investment funds that are actually sourcing and scouting the best innovations all year long. So we kind of rely on them as well to bring us the best that they have. So we work with networks like Ashoka, Solar Impulse Foundation, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, um, Startup Bootcamp, Clean Tech Open, the B Corps movement, and quite a few others who bring really the best of the solution that they work with. And then when it comes to direct selection curation, we always look at four criteria, which are: is there a concrete impact that we can measure and prove? Is there a business model that is validated and proven? Is it innovative, and is it scalable?
Hmm.
And when we look at those four criteria, if the company fulfills the four of them, then we feel that this company has its place at ChangeNOW.
That's great.
And then when it comes to what do we want people to live with, I would say I don't know. I think it's proper to everyone, but I would say this to you, which is we had a lot of public coming on the Saturday because it's on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and the Saturday usually is the general public that comes, and so many testimonials of people telling us that they had social callings after ChangeNOW, and that they left the jobs and they changed careers after they joined a company that they met during the summit, um, or some other kind of organization, or they just quit because they were just tired of doing something that was just so dry. And I think that's what we want people to live with, is just feeling like this experience that they had at ChangeNOW got them, I wouldn't say enlightened, but I would say at least it got them to ask themselves questions. And because I think there's a lot of people that actually came not really knowing why they came, but because also they heard that this was a very cool event, and they had friends coming. So, well, why don't I come as well? And I'm just going to see, look, and get to see some people I know, and then they would leave inspired by what that they had, what they heard, who they met, what they saw. And uh, and uh, I'm not expecting everyone to get a social calling and quit the jobs, and that's not what I'm asking for. But what I hope is that everyone leaves the space with that feeling that it's possible if we all play our part, and there is very little things that I can already do by myself at my own level. And hey, maybe I can do more, and maybe I can contribute as well, and why not make a career out of it? Because for too long, people were just spending their careers doing something they don't like to sustain their lives and the one of their loved ones, and starting to care about the rest when they would retire. And I feel that it should be the other way around. You should just
Mm-hmm.
why you my feeling is I want to that's what we call the ikigai, which is the alignment.
Mm-hmm.
I want to spend my career putting my skills and my knowledge in a way that would contribute to everyone. So yeah.
Ah, I love that. That's so powerful. What a ripple effect. Um, I mean, I think visibility is so important. And one of the things your summit does is it gives visibility to social enterprises, to a different way of operating. And sometimes all people need to know is that there is a better way to do something to start demanding it. Like visibility shifts culture, it changes expectations, it sets a new standard. And so that's so powerful to see a ripple effect from the Change Now Summit where uh, individuals are realizing they can demand more from their own careers. So, not just a paycheck that supports their family, but something that gives them meaning too. That is, you mentioned the term ikigai, which I love. And for those who don't know it, it's a Japanese word, which is the intersection of what you're good at, what the world needs, what you love, and what you can be paid for doing. And so, at the intersection of those four things is basically your purpose or your sweet spot. Um, I love that. So, as you think about the future of Change Now, how do you want it to evolve? What are you hoping for?
Well, what we're working on right now is few things. One is getting this summit to become more and more global and scale year after year, and that's what we're doing this year. It's actually emphasized by this digital format that will allow everyone to participate, and I do hope I will get a lot of people from Portland to attend it and to watch it. Counting on you, Katie. But besides that, I think our what we're working on right now is also how can we have an impact 365 days a year, and not just during those 3 days. So we're working on creating other platforms during the year in other geographies and other formats as well, where we can also help you know uh, different kind of stakeholders. For example, schools as well, working with schools to help them with the programs to train more and more younger generations to be prepared when they join the workforce, to be prepared and have the right skills to work on those topics. We work as well with companies as well to help them in their transition efforts as well, helping them find identifying innovation, sustainable innovation that can help them at various levels of their supply chain. Um, we also work with media. And with cities as well. We have programs for mayors and cities who are trying to look at finding solutions that can help them with their local issues. So how can they find a solution to a specific regional issue in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia? We there to help them find innovators that can help them. So that's the kind of way we are getting more and more structured into a kind of uh, agency of change, or actor that professionalize change. You know that's what we're kind of turning into.
Super exciting. Now I know we've reached the end. Are there any last thoughts you want to share that we didn't get to?
Um, Good question. Well, I think we covered a lot actually. I think yeah. I think it's nice to talk about it, but the best is to experience it. So I would say, if you're curious about Change Now, well, next next edition is from 27th to the 29th of May, online. So these 3 days with more than 400 speakers and really inspiring people. So and it's free. It's absolutely free to attend it. So, but if you have some time on those 3 days, I would definitely um, advise you this I mean the people who are listening to us to just spend a few minutes just watching and maybe come back to you, Katie, or to us to and share what they learned during that day. um, and yeah, uh, I think we covered a lot tonight.
Excellent. And I'll put in the show notes a link to where to register for the Change Now conference this year. Um, and where else can people find you online and what you're doing and stay in the know on what Change Now is doing?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow us on all the social networks, on LinkedIn, on we have a YouTube channel on Facebook, on all the platforms, and on our website as well. If they want to register and subscribe to our newsletter, we do send newsletter very once or twice a month. So that's how they can follow our news. And don't hesitate as well to reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me, and I'll be very pleased to connect.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This was an incredible conversation. And what you're doing is incredible with Change Now. So thank you for this platform that you've created and put it out into the world.
Thanks, Kelly, for this invitation. It was really a great pleasure to exchange with you tonight. And yeah, thanks again for that moment. It was actually a good break in my day, I would say. These days are very busy, and it was really nice to get out of it and spend that time reflecting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.